What is really negotiable in the game of real estate? People don't really know how to play the negotiation game. They don't even know what they can do because they've had power stripped from them.
And I'll give you 3 wishes.
Make it 5.
4.
3. Take it or leave it.
All they see is prices going up, interest rates going up, and them thinking, oh no, like real estate's just not affordable. I better hurry and jump. But like, where do I even have the power to negotiate or even know if I should even be doing this? Like maybe I shouldn't even be buying a house right now. How much should you offer on a home? Let's find out. Here's what real estate looks like most of the time. You have a job, you have household income, it's time to upgrade, buy a house, you find a house you like, you know more or less what you can afford, you put an offer in, you get the house, you move into the house, you get the house. But that isn't really what real estate has looked like for the last few years. So is it even smart to get a house? Interest rates are really high, so it means that mortgages are really expensive. It's like, will I ever actually be able to buy real estate ever again? It's like a financial pandemic has hit the whole country for how the people in California normally feel.
California.
California is California.
California.
The state of California.
But the last 3 years, it's not California, it's kind of, well, all 50 states. In other words, most people are feeling that California pressure and stress of, how am I even gonna be able to afford this?
California.
You don't start by shopping for a neighborhood and finding a house that you like and you hope that it works out, or you just hope that you can get a good price on it. You have to start by asking, what can I afford based on where rates are today? Now, there's a couple of things about affordability that I want you to understand. The first one is interest rates make a big difference. If interest rates right now are sitting at 6.5%, and by the end of the year, they might be scheduled to be closer to 4.5%. Well, a 2% difference, 6.5 versus 4.5 on a $300,000 home can make the difference of many hundreds of dollars on what your mortgage payment is. The other one is DTI, debt to income ratio. And every bank has a set of rules on how much money they're willing to lend you based on your income and based on your expenses. For example, if you look at all the banks out there and you ask, Kris, which bank is the most generous with letting me get the most house? Hands down, it's a government loan called FHA. FHA stands for Federal Housing Administration, and it's basically the government saying, we will back your loan. And of course, they're gonna be the most generous because they wanna stimulate the economy by helping people get into homes. They have what's called a front-end ratio, and that's basically for the housing expense. The banks understand that your biggest expense you're ever gonna have is your mortgage. And so FHA basically says, we will let you allocate up to 31% of your income towards a home. Now, if rates are really low, you can get a lot more house, and if rates are really high, like I talked about earlier, you can get a lot less house. FHA also has what's called a back-end ratio, and their back-end ratio says, we don't really want to see you have any kind of revolving debt or monthly expenses in excess of 57% a month. Now, you also have conventional loans, and they're more conservative. Instead of 31% of a front-end ratio, meaning 31% of your income going towards your house expense, with a conventional loan, it's only 28%. But on the back end, many conventional banks will only go as high as 40, 45, or even 50%, as opposed to FHA's 57%. What this does is this basically says, hey, when you go out there and you shop or you work with your realtor and you're starting to wonder, okay, well, what price range should we be in? And also, what's the maximum payment we can handle? You now have it down to $1. In other words, if you're negotiating a $350,000 home and you need to get it for $320,000 to qualify, and the person says, we just won't go lower than $350,000. If you still want that house, the difference between what the bank will give you, $320,000, and what the seller wants, $350,000, there's a gap of $30,000. You would have to bring an extra $30,000 to that deal in addition to the down payment. Maybe on FHA, it's a 3.5% down. So you might go from only putting $10,000 down to $40,000 down to get that house. So you need to make sure that you're shopping for a house in your price range.
20 shekels. Right. What? They were. Wait a minute. Well, we're supposed to haggle. All right, I'll give you 19 then. No. Come on, do it properly. What? Haggle properly. This isn't worth 19.
What should your strategy be when it comes to your own home? So with FHA guidelines, you could literally max out and say, we're gonna buy the most expensive house that we can, we're gonna put the smallest down payment, and we're gonna make sure that 31% of our income, the maximum allowable amount, is gonna go towards our mortgage. And when you do that, you become very cash poor, because of all the money that you make, there's less excess at the end of the year because you're allocating so much towards a house. On the other end of the extreme, you've got Dave Ramsey, who often says, oh, you want to buy a house? Don't buy a house until you can buy it cash, because debt is bad. And there's several people that will literally spend decades saving up to basically be able to buy their home cash. So The question is, what is the right answer? Well, it's super aggressive to max yourself out, and it's super conservative to pull the Ramsey. Right in the middle is a special sweet spot I call the investor. And what it means is, don't look for a home, look for a home and a house.
This is big brain time.
And that's a cute way for me to say that a home is a place where you may live, but a house is also a smart investment so that when you move out of it, you want to keep it for your portfolio. And I don't believe that you should max yourself out by buying too much house, and I definitely wouldn't say pay for it cash. In fact, I am in favor of usually putting the smallest amount down. But by buying something I can easily afford, I'm setting myself up with stepping stones for a brighter financial future. Let me tell you about when I bought my very first home. I was poor. I made literally just under $20,000 a year that first year. The second year, I did better financially, but when it came to qualify, I could basically qualify for a $150,000 mortgage. The first house that I bought, however, was a $110,000 bungalow. It was a tiny little thing. And its saving grace was that it had a basement that I could rent out that would cover most of the mortgage. Meanwhile, my buddy with the same income bought a new house on a hill with a beautiful view of the valley and the lake, and I was jealous. Every time I go to his house, I thought, man, I could have bought that. But instead of just buying a nice home, I ended up sacrificing buying a house. Now, a year later, because I bought it at a discount, I went back to the bank and I asked for a home equity line of credit. And they said, well, the house is worth a lot more than what you owe, so let's give you a $20,000 line of credit. I took that line of credit and I used the equity in my first house to buy a second house. Well, I ended up buying this house twice as nice and twice as big as my first house, and it was a lot newer. But instead of moving into it, I rented it out, and I did a lease option on it. I put a family in it who had the intention of buying it. And as a result, instead of collecting $300 a month of positive cash flow, with a lease option, I collected $600 a month, plus a down payment that was non-refundable. So just on that second house alone, I bought something much nicer, but it wasn't for me. And then I used the equity on that second house to buy me and my wife our third home, which still had a basement apartment and covered the mortgage. Now, I'll grant that the home was newer, the home was nicer, but still we were living totally within our means. If you fast forward 4 years, I ended up buying 25 homes. I did it all with less than $5,000. And the reason why I was able to do this is I could attract other people to give me their money to build a portfolio because I was being really frugal with my money and I was focusing on houses instead of homes. So super ironically, after those 25 homes, my wife and I custom built a 10,000 square foot home on the golf course outside of Sundance, Utah. And it was a beautiful home for our family for 11 years before we moved into this estate. That house was largely paid for by all of my real estate activities because we were living within our means. When you answer the question, what should you offer? Don't think Dave Ramsey, pay it off, but definitely don't think let's get as much house as we can. Right there in the middle is a sweet spot that says, you know what? Be smart, be reasonable, look for an investment before you look for a primary residence. And if you can't see how this home is going to help establish a greater portfolio of homes down the road, you're doing it wrong. Of course, everyone's situation is different, and you might be wondering, okay, Kris, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? And you know what? I would love to give you that gift. Check it out. I wrote a book that shows you step by step exactly how I built a portfolio starting with basically nothing. And I've got people all over the country that are duplicating that same strategy. They're ripping me off and stealing it. The only difference is that I told them to, just like I'm gonna tell you right now. The book that I wrote is called The Strait Path to Real Estate Wealth, and I'd like to give you a free copy of it. If you click the link below, you are gonna cover the shipping of the book, but the cost of the book and everything else, that's totally free as a gift from me to you. But it comes with an additional bonus kicker. When you get the book, I'm also going to make sure that I have a member of my team reach out to you to give you a custom Kris Krohn game plan. And here's what it means. Tell me your family's income, tell me your credit situation, tell me whether you do or don't have savings, whether you're renting or have a house. And basically, after I look at your situation, I'm gonna share with you step by step exactly what I would do to become a millionaire and then a multimillionaire so that I wouldn't have to work a 40-year career working life. Instead, I would be able to be financially free and live life on my terms. And if you wanna use real estate to do that, or if you just wanna be smarter about how you buy real estate, click the link below, get the book for free, and then let me be in contact with you for a free game plan and show you exactly what I would do. Man, sometimes I ask myself, if I lost everything and had to start all over again in 2024, how would I do it? Well, actually, I figured out exactly what my game plan would be, and I've got people everywhere that are copying it. If you wanna know what it is, click right here and let me show you how I would start over in 2024.